else to get on. I'm going to just pause my screen for now. Jonas here. Can you hear me or anyone else? Okay, you can't hear me. Let's see what I'm not doing right here. I can hear. Nope. Yes. Can everybody hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? We'll start in a minute or two, just waiting for a few more people to get on. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can all hear me. We're going to get started. I'm going to record this, so if you have to leave for any reasons, it will be recorded, and you can come back and watch it at any time. So just give me a minute to do one or two things here, and we'll get started. Let's see. We're going to start recording now. And when we're done, if you want to watch it again, you can, or if you have other colleagues that want to see it, they can come and watch it at any time. Okay, my name is Kevin Bogert. And what we're going to talk about today, oops, sorry about that. I'm from Azimuth Compliance Consulting. First time I'm using GoToWebinar, so you're going to have to bear with me, but the content will be pretty good, but the use or showing it may be a little problematic. So let's go and see how we go. Anyway, what I'm going to talk about today is data integrity. I'm going to cover what it is as it is in the guidance document with a few comments. I'm going to look at a 483 and give you some takeaways from that 483 as it relates to data integrity. I'm going to look at what is a quality system and how that relates to data integrity. And then some of the tools available to you. As you will hear or see, many of the companies in the industry probably don't use everything that is available or should be available to them to address data integrity. Then how do you go, or where do you go from here? Oh, yes, good. What is data integrity? As the FDA defines it, it has to do with the completeness, consistency, and accuracy of the data. So what does that mean? As you will find out, if you're going to make a copy of this document, is it the original or a true copy? It depends on the kind of data. Is it legible? Is it recorded properly? Do you follow good documentation practices when recording this data? Additionally, one of the key things I find in this guidance document is a data life cycle. From the time you create it, throughout its whole process, through its retention period, and what you do when that retention period is reached. Many companies I encounter don't have records management around their data, or even their documents for that matter. Metadata. Again, this is data about data, and it falls in and is retained as long as that data record is there. So any data about data needs to be retained per the GMPs. Audit trail. Again, I'm just going over some real quick definitions here so we're all on the same page when I'm talking about this. The main takeaway about audit trail is that the FDA wants to see that you do have audit trail in compliance with 21 CFR Part 11. But in addition, they want to see if you are actually reviewing your audit records. Some track that you have that says, I've taken action, I did look at my audit records for the past year or 2 years or whatever it is, and they are complete, capturing information that needs to be captured. I find many companies do not actually do this. They only do it when they need to look up some issue related to it. But as we'll see in a citation or 483 that I have some reference to this particular item around looking at your audit trails. As it comes to true copy, one of the key things is a difference of data. Fixed data, which is just paper data, or dynamic data, data about data. Again, metadata, I get out a report from some piece of equipment, but it records a file that has data in it. That both those pieces are GMP data as the FDA is concerned. It is a complete record, not only the report, but the data that was used to generate that report. This would be most likely something like a scale or something that does a lot of weighing and is recording data into a file and then creating a report at the end of it. So you need to have that file plus that report. That is your complete data record. How you make a true copy of that is how you copy that file and that report. So what is data integrity? As it relates to a warning letters for the past, say 2005 through 2019, this company, NSF International, did a review of 196 warning letters. And they came up with 5 key items that the FDA focused on. Incomplete or missing records, 67% of the time. That means out of 196 records, 131 of them actually had incomplete or missing records. 61 of those 196 had access control issues, meaning how you access the system. Smaller number had deleting records. What the FDA thought were GMP records were deleted. One of the key ones I found is number 4 here, the reprocessing. And I find this as not only a data integrity issue, but actually a good documentation issue. Wiping out a previous recorded result and doing it again until it finally passes. As we'll see on a 483, the company did it 3 times till it finally got the results they wanted. And they deleted or renamed the previous tests. Audit trail, a big thing for the FDA. They look, not only is audit trail being captured, but are you reviewing the audit trail? What's really important is between a 5-year period, the FDA had 39 import alerts compared to 11 prior years, they only had 3. So they're really focusing on data integrity as a big issue for many companies. So in a 483 observation that I came across, one of the key things in this thing, and I highlight them by those 5 items on the previous screen, is lack of username, passwords, and audit trails. The ability for somebody to delete a record without that being captured in the audit trail. Ability for them to go onto the hard drive and actually delete the record or data. Yeah. And then lack of review or no procedures for reviewing of audit trails or the assignment of user roles. All half of these relate to Part 11. So the FDA focused on some key parts from Part 11 as what they're looking for as data integrity. The second observation, now this one relates pretty much to document control. I would say of all the quality management systems on the market, maybe only 1 or 2 actually comply with the data integrity rules in the guidance document. Why I say that? All of them have the ability to track who revised the document, who approved the document, so forth. When a document goes into archive, because it's no longer needed, or a prior version goes in archive, who they distributed the document to, possibly. They may say this is who got copies of it. But what they're really missing is a key part of the guidance document, blank forms. What happened to those blank forms? Or what happened to forms that they completed and they made errors on? Instead of correcting that form, they discarded the forms and created new ones. They went and made a copy of it. So there was no real way for them to track that document once it left the document control system. So my question is it really a document control system? Or when that document actually was returned, was it the original document? So if we look at it, there's a lot of checks back to the guidance document as it relates to that first one I mentioned. The third observation had to do with reviewing of audit trails. Again, there was no proof that this customer or this client was actually looking at their audit trails, reviewing them on an annual basis or whatever their periodic basis they were using. And then the analyst was allowed to go and change the data or the data files. They renamed them test. And every time until they finally got a passing result, did they use that record? So the question that the FDA had, what happened to the other 2 records out of the 3 they used? But what they did was they renamed it, 2 of them as test. So again, these are the things that the FDA focuses on as it relates to data integrity. And these are the things that were discovered when we reviewed a particular 483 as it related to data integrity. So what does the FDA mean by data integrity? And what are they doing? Well, what they're doing is they're actually doing what they call data integrity investigations. They'll come on site and say, we're here to do this kind of investigation. We want to look at your systems, computerized systems, and see if they comply with 21 CFR Part 11, if you control the documents as stated in the guidance document, both the hard copy and the electronic copy, through its whole life cycle, from the time it was created till the time it no longer is needed. So it meant through its record retention period. Very few quality management systems on the market can do this. Okay, so what's the purpose? Why are they doing this? One of the things the FDA, and we had met with them probably 2-3 years ago, they said is that little C in GMPs, companies need to stay current. How are we going to help them do this? Well, we're going to come out with some guidance documents. One of these documents is data integrity and compliance with drug, CGMP questions and answers. This was given in December 2018. And if you look at it, you'll see the things that the FDA will focus on doing a data integrity investigation. Another key one had to do with more around the medical device world, was saying, look, the baseline that you need to start from are the regulations. We expect you to continuously improve quality to reduce the possibility of data integrity issues. There are companies in the industry that can help you, that have set the standards for this. You need to collaborate with them and basically fix the issues that we find. How are they helping you with this? Well, this year, finally, they're coming out with what they call the Computer Software Assurance for Manufacturing and Quality Systems software. CSA basically is what it's known as. This is a revamp of how they view validation. Give you a little background on this. I myself have been involved with this for about 30 years. I was a member of the Computer System Validation Committee, which was prior to GAMP. So a lot of the standards that GAMP go by or started with came from that committee. That's all based on a process called the waterfall method. And that no longer is acceptable to the FDA. They're saying this just creates a lot of paper and we don't have the auditors to go through a lot of paper. And it doesn't really prove that the system actually meets your requirements. All you're doing is trusting a vendor to say, here's some scripts I wrote, we're going to run through these, and that meets your need for validation. Or we're going to create a whole bunch of scripts and hope the FDA never really looks through it. Most likely they won't. They'll look at the summary report and say, yep, you're good. But what they're finding is that's no longer acceptable to them. And part of the issue is they use that themselves. And they said, we cannot continue this. So they're revamping this whole, what they call computer system validation, to come out with this thing called computer software assurance. So what is a quality system? It's made up of 3 parts. The quality control group, which is a subset of the quality assurance group, which is a subset of the quality system. In quality control, you have all these instruments for testing data, be it raw material, in process, or final product. Then you have quality assurance and the systems they put in place for managing documents, training, and so forth. But then you have this gray area. And this gray area is basically where the FDA is focusing some of their effort around data integrity. It's those processes that they've been doing for a long time as a paper process, where they know if they look deep enough, they will find issues related to data integrity, forms not properly filled out, so forth. So what companies do is they hire a bunch of consultants or employees to review all this stuff to make sure, gee, did we do everything we're supposed to? And they find issues. And they try to fix them before the FDA comes in. But why are you doing this in the first place? Well, as we find out, many of the systems used by these companies are based off a standard from the 1950s. So how document control has been done for years hasn't changed since 1950. How people do root cause analysis really hasn't changed from the 1950s. But the problem is many of these systems don't even give you the tools that were based off the 50s, let alone later in the years. But what are these tools I'm talking about? Well, once I get through some simple little quotes here, I'm going to touch on it because Ishikawa does. He came out with the 7 fundamental quality tools in the 50s, and these are still used today. I happened to go up onto the ASQ website, and there they were, and some additional ones. But as Deming said, most companies capture data on forms and never look at the data. They use it for museum purposes. What I mean by that is they catch that form, fill it out, said, yep, the process was good, we captured everything, and we file it in a cabinet, or we put it in a document control system, and we store it there. not to look at until somebody asks for it. There's data on there and we don't pay any attention to it because we don't have the time. So Deming says, then you don't know your process. If you can't analyze the data, you don't understand your process well enough to improve it. But nothing's really changed in 70 years. To prove that, I look back at these 7 basic quality tools that Ishikawa mentioned. If you look at them, I guarantee you use probably 6 of the 7 of them. I haven't seen really many use check sheets any longer since they have computerized systems. But all these other ones they use. But how many of these are part of your quality management system that you bought from some vendor? Look at your system and say, are these part of it? Do you have Pareto charts? Do you have control charts? I've seen only 1 or 2 on the market that actually provide you a mechanism to do control charts from data you capture. But the problem is capturing that data. It's still, I'd say 80 to 90% of it's still done using paper. So all you do is open yourself up to data integrity issues. Then in 1996, when Lean really became popular, they came out with some additional quality tools, the project charter, the process map, and then value-added workflow analysis. 2 I'm going to focus on is the project charter. You know, how many of you companies out there actually do project charters before you start a project? Say, this is the scope of what I'm going to address. How many of your quality systems actually have the ability for you to generate and route a quality or project charter, an A3? How many of your quality systems that you have on the that are on the market and that you use actually have or give you the ability to do process mapping? Either a simple flow chart that you can do with something like Visio or something with swim lanes. Again, I know some of the leading companies that they're saying, oh, we're coming out with this next year. Well, it's 2021, next year is 2022, and this came out in 1996. So they're not even providing you the tools that have been around for 25 years to help you do your job in quality. Maybe you have a system that gives you the ability to do an Ishikawa or a 5Y and connect that to an actual kappa so that you can say, this is how I analyze that data needed for the kappa resolution. But most companies do it on paper and might attach it to the record. But as the FDA would say, well, where is the data? Well, here's on paper. Okay, fine. Or we didn't keep it. We got rid of it because once we figured out what the root cause was, we didn't need it any longer. Okay, well, isn't that part of the data or metadata that you collect? What about control charts? Are you doing this? Do you know the process? Or is this just stored in some other system and when you're done with it, you discard it? Again, it's part of the process. You need to know your process, as Deming said, and you need to monitor that. But as the FDA is concerned, that is data. That's called dynamic data, because you might get that control chart, but you don't actually have the data points that were used for that control chart. You may have discarded it after so many weeks or something like that. So in 2015 or thereabout, ASQ came out with what they call the Quality 4.0 tools, artificial intelligence, big data, blockchain, and so forth. But the problem with this is they didn't give you the tool to collect the data. All they said is these are the tools you need to analyze data, but to say, how do you collect this data? Prior to this, it was easy. You would just collect stuff, enter it into a spreadsheet, analyze it, and move forward. But that's not good for something like artificial intelligence because it's based on a lot of data. If you look at companies like Amazon, for instance, from the beginning of Amazon, everything has been collected electronically and analyzed. They can use AI for doing analysis. Can you do that with your system? Most likely, the answer is not, because the quality management systems on the market do not provide you the technology to do this. I know probably, I'll say 2 or 3 that actually give you this information or this tool to analyze it. So what's the tool I'm talking about? The tool I'm talking about is called BPM, Business Process Management. There's actually 2 of these. One's called BPM and the other one's called IBPM, Intelligent Business Process Management. I will discuss both of these in a little more detail. But the question would be, go back and look. Can you use any of these tools that ASQ came out with to analyze your data? There are a few companies, I know one in particular called Merck, that actually had a major shift probably 2 years ago in putting BPM in as their main tool for collecting data. So ASQ talks about 3 parts when it talks about collecting data for analysis. First, people. They look at the quality organization as being the professionals, the ones that manage quality, and should have the digital tools available to them to analyze this data. What ASQ looks at is, with the tools we're providing you, if you put a system in place that captures this data, you can, as a quality person, move away from the role of enforcer to the role of innovator. You're the person that knows the processes, knows the requirements from a regulatory perspective, and has all the quality tools available to you to analyze the data to improve the process. So if you go back to Deming in 1950s, actually the 40s, right after World War II, he said the role of quality is continuous improvement. But ask yourself, how many of you are actually doing continuous improvement versus being a reactive type person? We have a problem we need to fix. Well, why did that problem occur in the first place? And the question probably is, you weren't capturing the data to analyze it. If you're not capturing the data and it's going on forms, most likely you have a data integrity issue somewhere along the line. But the data is not being analyzed, you're missing data and you don't know it. Or people are not reporting it properly. You have no way of knowing that. They're just recording it as they need to. The second thing is process. ASQ feels you should understand your processes, just as Deming mentioned back in the 50s. The key is to find the proper tool that limits your risk as it relates to data integrity and compliance. So if you have a system right now that you use for managing quality, it does document control, it does employee training, but can it help you in automating your processes and moving away from paper that is causing the majority of the data integrity issues, and ensuring that every record has an audit record associated with it? So if I go and automate some process that is manual right now, will I be collecting all the right data, be it static or dynamic? And will I have an audit record related to all that data? Do I then do a periodic review of that data to make sure that my process actually is working properly? That I'm capturing the data, I know who entered it, who revised it, who deleted it. If you're not doing this, then you're at a very high risk of a data integrity issue. Because at some point, data is going to be missing. You're not going to be able to find a form. The FDA is going to walk in and say, let me look at this batch record. Somebody checked out a form and didn't return it from the batch record. They're reviewing it and they see missing forms or missing data. And they ask you, where is it? And you have no idea because you have no way to track it. The number one item that the FDA identifies as a data integrity issue. And it's all caused because most companies still do stuff using paper forms. Instead of putting in a process automated system that can capture the data electronically and reduce your risk. Technology. 10 years ago, there weren't the tools out there to help you. Or the tools were there, they were extremely expensive. Most companies could not do or could not afford the systems. What I say by could not do is they didn't have the resources internally or by the vendor that knew how to do what they needed to do, what the government regulations were, and so forth. And what we found was many of these companies would say, well, yeah, that's great technology, but it takes us 6 to 9 months to automate that process because we have to worry about 3 things. 1, the vendor we use doesn't have the knowledge. 2, it's going to take us 6 months just to automate the process because we have to get an IT person or some consultant to come in here and write a bunch of code. And 3, we had to do the validation, and that's going to take us at least 3 more months. So it's 9 months for any process to be automated. I'd say 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, that was true, but not no longer. You can put in your typical automated process, not a batch record, but most automated processes that make up part of the batch record in 5 to 6 weeks, fully validated, without a question, at a lower cost of ownership. So technology, as they say, is a great leveler. Small companies can buy the same technology that these large companies had. It's no longer having these data warehouses that they talk about, but having tools that come part of a quality management system that I can go and automate processes and capture all the key data. So quality professionals will be moving away from this role of data analysts to more of a role of leader, or as ASQ said, a data wrangler role. They're the ones that are controlling the data, bringing it together, making sure there's no issues with the data. So when the FDA walks in, they say, look, we have automated the process, we have validated the process, and we control the process. We continuously improve it. So what are these tools I'm talking about? Well, the first one that's been around for a few years, and maybe you heard about it, maybe you didn't, is called Quality Business Process Management. Well, what is Quality Business Process Management? What it is a platform called a business process management platform with quality tools built on top of it or integrated into it. So it may have 12, 14 processes that you need, such as document control, employee training, audit management, and so forth. But the ability, with the help of IT, to automate these processes or a consultant. That's great, but many companies cannot afford to have a bunch of IT people or consultants on staff when their role is to make a product or a medical device or a drug or biological or whatever. But these tools do have some key things. They have all the quality tools from the 50s, all the ones from the 1990s, and integration to a lot of the tools mentioned by ASQ. So they have the ability to artificial intelligence, or what they'll call robotic process automation. Those steps that are done repeatedly by a human can be done by a bot or a computer program as part of the tool that can capture in data and enter it in with little or no human interface. We're capturing a lot of data, so your data integrity risk goes way down. The difficult or the con of this tool is it's heavy dependent on coding to make changes to a process, still dependent on IT or a consultant. So I can't go and use this tool to do what ASQ is saying, automate my processes. It's going to take me long. I'm going to high expense having consultants, and validation is going to be a big issue. Fine. There's another tool out there called Quality Intelligent Business Process Management. What this is, it has all the capability of QBPM, but it has intelligence built into it. These tools allow you to continuously improve your process, to optimize them, to simulate those processes to see if there's any issues with them, to predict possible problems based on the data that you have, because the data is captured real time and can be analyzed real time. They're low-code platforms, meaning you don't need programmers. This can be handled by what we call the citizen developer, a QA person that can do this. You can do what Deming has always said the role of quality is continuous improvement. Because you have the data, you can see if the process is lean, if it's running well, and you can improve it based on the data you capture. If you need help, you should have consultants available to you that can help you, but really their role is to train you to be those citizen developers, to go out there and say, I'm going to automate these 10 processes. I figure each one's going to take me 5 weeks, including validation. So I can do 10 processes in what I used to be able to do with 2 processes. So in 9 months, I can have 10 processes automated. And we questioned this, so we tried it out with 2 of our customers, and it actually worked. They're able to automate their own processes. We showed them how to do it. They capture all the data requirements now that they need to automate the process. We showed them how to go about and do the validation. The validation is built into the design. So as they are building or configuring the applications that they want to automate, they're capturing all the data they need and all the documentation they need for the validation. So when 5 weeks come by or 6 weeks, they have a fully validated application up and running, capturing the data real time and reducing their risk as it relates to data integrity. Now the cons with these is it makes it still difficult to analyze the data because it's not fully matured yet, meaning it doesn't have built into it the AI. You still have to use AI tools from maybe Google or Amazon or something like that because they're not part of the platform yet. And from a quality perspective, there's a limited number of vendors in the market. I know probably 2, maybe 3 that can actually provide most of this capability. But the leaders in the market, I'm not going to mention their name, but they say they're the leaders, don't have this technology. They're just looking at it maybe next year or the year after, where they're going to start providing you some tool that says, oh, we can do BPM. But if they're just entering or putting it in now, they're 5, 6 years behind. They're no longer the leaders, they're the followers in the market. So if you want to go and reduce your data integrity risk, these are the tools you need to start looking at. Things that from the 50s, from the 1990s, and from 2015, when you look at a platform to reduce your data integrity risk and to automate many of your processes. But in addition, to address what the FDA pointed out is data integrity, especially around document control, where you have those forms that have been filled out improperly and discarded, where the person made a copy of the form and you don't even know they made a copy because you don't know which was the original, the one they're handing in or the one in the trash bin. Or are they discarding those blank forms when those are actually GMP records because you didn't fill it out? Are you printing out more than you need? These are all the things the FDA is going to look at in your quality system, especially document control. So to reduce your risk, you need to re-examine the tools you're using. So where do you go from here? Validation, it can be greatly reduced if you move away from GAMP's waterfall model to more of an agile methodology. GAMP is based off of collecting your requirements, defining how those requirements are going to be coded, coding it, so you have V-shape going all the way down and back up. What FDA did was flip that upside down and said, no, you need to know what the risk is with everything that you're doing. Do I even need to test that? It's no longer saying, here's some scripts provided by a vendor, I'm going to execute them. That's great on a big off-the-shelf product, but not when you're trying to use BPM to automate a lot of processes. GAMP will not work. You'll be right back to that thing of 6 to 7 months to automate a process and to validate it versus 6 to 7 weeks. It doesn't work. These systems that I kind of mentioned come fully compliant with 29 CFR Part 11, GDPR if you're in Europe, HIPAA if you're in clinical studies, and other government regulations. Most of these systems have built-in encryption so the data is safe. You cannot change it by going through the back door. Data integrity is designed into the process, as well as validation. It's not an afterthought, it's built into it. Key is many of the vendors on the market just don't understand what data integrity is or what computer software assurance is. They're going to say they do, oh, yeah, it's this is how you do it. But they don't do it for a living. You need to find consultants that actually do this for a living, that can help you become the leader in the area of quality, moving away from what we call a cost center to a profit center. If you look back at Deming, it says you should be a profit center. You should be making so much money for that organization because you continuously improve quality, you reduce the cost of making a product instead of being reactive and fixing problems. You need to be proactive, and the only way you can be proactive is moving away from paper, becoming fully electronic. This can be achieved probably in 2 to 3 years if you use the right technology. Then you can analyze and use the tools that ASQ has said is part of Quality 4.0. So where do we go from here? To make a leap from the 50s to the 21st century, most, again, quality systems on market provide 80% of the tools from the 1950s, not the 1996, but from the 1950s. I have found only 1 to 3 products on the market, and I'm familiar with most of them, that actually provide all the tools from the 1950s. Then if you jump into the 1996 area, when they started coming out with Lean, your number goes down to probably 30% of them on the market, if that. And then if you look at ASQ Quality 4.0, now you only have 2 or 3 solutions that are on the market that actually can do the stuff that ASQ is talking about, using AI and so forth to analyze data, to predict what might happen versus being reactive, what will happen or what did happen. You want to know what might happen in the future. Am I going to use a potential expired product in making, or raw material, say, in making a product when that process comes about? The system should tell you that ahead of time, not find out afterwards. It should be able to tell you that, look, we're going to be making this product next week, and this tool or instrument I'm going to use for calibrating or testing something is going to be out of date, or is actually trending that way because I'm capturing, as I use that instrument, the data from it, and I'm analyzing, I can see that it's trending towards being out of compliance. So I catch it before it happens. So that's pretty much my presentation. I may have gone a little faster and only did it in probably 40 minutes versus 50, but I did make some available some white papers related to document control and data integrity. And we will be putting up some more papers on our website if you're interested in topics around data integrity and so forth. I will now take any questions if you have any. Let's see. If you have any questions, please post them and I will respond and answer them. If not, thank you for coming and enjoy your day. Doesn't look like there's any questions, so I will be ending this particular webinar. You can either reach out to me. Not sure if I have a slide with my contact. Let me see if I do on the next one. Oops, sorry. Nope. Just questions and answers. If you have any, again, we're going to have papers up on our website related to data integrity, also around what I call BPM and IBPM, or Intelligence Business Process Management, that you can download and get information or ask us questions via our website or send emails to us. Thank you. Have a nice day.